we go, as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this way is missing us along, just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
Sing the Oz with us.
Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
You're welcome. I don't know.
I'm welcoming, even while you're standing here?
Yeah.
No, I'm a solo act. I'm solo, I don't know this. Okay.
Do you want us to help?
All right. No, I don't need your help. Okay, look, why don't you guys stand up for a second? Turn and say hello to the person next to you. Give your name. Say, welcome to Unity.
Thank you, guys.
If you got to. All right. All right. All right. Okay, now if you would, please just turn off the volume on your cell phone. You can keep your cell phone on if you want to photograph or photograph the ministers up here, or do whatever you want to do. But we'd just like to put away any kind of interference with our service. Okay. I want to welcome our screening people who are watching this online. We appreciate you tuning in, sharing your energy with us, and your tithes, which are coming in. We appreciate it very much. Want to say thank you and welcome to our Spanish-speaking friends who are here sharing in this service with us. Is there anybody here from another Unity today? Another Unity church or center anywhere? Okay. Oh yes, right over here. Leave your hand up. We have a gift for you. We have a gift for you. Yes. It's actually it's the registration to a brand new Lexus. It's waiting in the parking lot. Aren't you glad you kept your hand up? Is there anybody here for the first time? Okay. Oh look, we have several people here for the first time. Okay. Over here. Come on down here, Steve. Okay, great. All right. When the person's out here like this during the service, it's here to warm you up and help you feel comfortable and at home. Because this is Welcome Home Sunday. All right, so I'm going to tell you a story about a guy that lived in a large apartment complex, and he was about to go out to dinner, but he held his hand out the window to see if it was going to rain, and a glass eye dropped into his hand, and he caught it. And he looked up and he saw a woman on the top floor looking out, and he said, "Is this your eye?" She said, "Yes." She said, "Would you mind bringing it up?" So he turned around and he went upstairs to her apartment, and he went in, and she said, "We'd like to stay and have a drink." He said, "Well, okay." So they had a drink together, and she said, "You know, I've got plenty of food. I was about to have dinner. If you want to have dinner, you can have dinner with me." And he said, "Oh, okay, great. So after dinner, she says to him, "Hey, would you be interested in spending the night?" And he said to her, "Are you this forward with every man you meet?" She said, "No, only those who catch my eye." Well, Linda's up here with the YOU. Let's enjoy them.
Hello, everyone. I am Melinda. I am the YOU Youth of Unity Director, and I have a team here who would like to say something.
For any middle schoolers going into high school or high schoolers who want to join us for today, will you please stand up?
Anyone? No? All right.
That's okay.
We just want to welcome anyone in the high school or middle school age. We have a lot of fun downstairs in this youth program, as well as in the elementary age range. And so we're always loving to see new people and welcoming new people. And please come join us. Or if you know a young one, have them come join us. Thank you.
Do this. We have a new song today called Lean Into Me. I hope you enjoy it. Sing along if you know it, or just join in. Ready, guys? When darkness closes in, doubts you drag around only seem to say Just let go and lean into me. You're longing to be filled with peace that overflows, to hear my quiet voice. Just be still and know, in every sacred silence, it's only a whisper away. Lean into me, I will raise you up. Gather your faith and we'll walk on water, and hold out your hand when you can't go on. Just let go and lean into me. With every leap of faith comes the risk you may slip and stumble. Leave what you know behind, out on the edge you'll find. I won't let you fall. Lean into me, I will raise you up. Gather your faith and we'll walk on water, and hold out your hand when you can't go on. Just let go and lean into me. Just let go and lean into me.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of your beautiful faces here today. I'm just going to invite you just to come in the presence of the room and close your eyes and recognize this holy instant, this holy moment, to call on to this greater power, this greater love we call God, Spirit, Source. Whatever word makes you feel close to the divine nature that lives within us. As we sit in our community, we are vibrationally connecting on a higher level where all healing and peace will bring about a change in our own personal lives, and will also ripple out vibrationally out into this world and for this powerful planet, so that we may start seeing the change we want to see in this world. And we know that that starts with us. That starts with this deep connection, this practice, this recognition that we are one, and we are all children of God, made perfect in God's image. And we have the ability to rise up and gather the power of this God energy and become that which we are so wanting to become, and letting go of the old limitations and remembering the truth of our being, that we are powerful co-creators with this love. And we are so very grateful. We have no complaints whatsoever. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Amen.
Come a little more this way.
Welcome to Welcome Home Sunday and our annual ministers panel. We have had questions that were sent in till yesterday at 12, so we could at least go over them a little bit before we got up here and answered some of your questions that you sent in via email and Facebook. And we look forward to this every year, right, guys? Can't wait. No, it's good. It's fun. So,
Want the first question?
you want to just dive in?
In your opinion, why do you think that millennials are not attending church as much? I have an opinion on that.
Go ahead.
My opinion is that we have become outdated in their eyes, and that means it's very uncomfortable for them to come here, and it's irrelevant to come here.
I don't know what I think about that, but I actually think that millennials aren't coming to church now because their parents didn't bring them to church as kids. You know, we really saw the drop-off of children 10, 15 years ago. We used to have the downstairs packed with children. Every single room had 8 to 14 kids, and there's like 10 rooms down there. I mean, it was amazing. And I think that the parents stopped seeing the need in raising their children with a spiritual foundation. And so it's like anything. You take your kids to dance class, you give them exercise as a child, they're probably going to be exercising people as adults. If you give them a spiritual practice, it's a practice. They may take some years off, but eventually when they have a hard time, they go, oh yeah, that's right. I need to go back to church. So that's my feeling about it. I do see that the Sunday school is growing again, though, so I think that more people are recognizing that, in a world of turbulence like this really strong spiritual foundation for our children, when they leave our nest, we know that they have something to grasp onto to keep them feeling connected and know that they have a power to overcome any depression or fear or hardship.
I think the problem is developed over years, even decades and centuries. We're moving into a place where we worship the human intellect. We think that man is the greatest intelligence in all creation. We think we are the highest intelligence. And so, with all of our technology, we think we're proving something to ourselves. Basically, the millennials are just following suit. They think they can solve the problems of the world through their intellectual pursuits and understanding, but they're missing the point that unless we align ourselves with the greater intelligence, which is God, that gives us life and breath and opportunities to live and experience, until we do that, and unless we do that, we will not be able to solve the problems of the world. And how we get the millennials back in church, I told you how you could do this, but you said no.
I'm not putting up slot machines in the lobby.
Okay.
I won't do it.
Yeah, I told you how to do, not slot machines.
Go ahead, you just did it, so say it.
We need about 5 or 6 gorgeous guys and gorgeous
women. Oh my gosh, you are just...
All right, okay, so you don't want to do it.
Okay.
I think, actually, a lot of millennials I talk to and I have experience with is, it's not that they're disconnected from spirituality and the concepts of spirituality, that church has not evolved over the last 30 years. For them, church has become irrelevant. It's an outdated way of worship or contacting God. It hasn't stayed current with their needs and wants. So it's what their parents or grandparents did. It's not what they do. And so church, instead of seeing the changing times and evolving and seeing, well, what is it that the current people need, they were sort of beholden to the people that were already there, which was a congregation that was getting older. And so they've pandered to that congregation and left the younger people sort of behind. So you do see some churches are packed full of millennials that have tailored their experience to millennials. So it's not that they won't go, it's just that different places, they're not seeing it matching what their expectation is or what their desire is.
And you've talked about how it's an attention issue too. It's really,
Sure,
it's
yeah.
a different...
It's got to be more exciting.
Everything has to be faster, and they can't do like 20-minute sermons or 40-minute sermons because they're used to like instant gratification of like 4-minute YouTubes, and they get filled and they go, So how do you make that into a service? So it is, I mean, we talk about this all the time. This is in our meetings all the time. So trust me, if you have the answer, let us know.
The entire Unity movement would like the answer, by the way. Only 640 churches are looking for that answer.
One thing I do know, though, is we all have friends that have kids at the millennial level all the way up to 30 years old. And I know when people feel personally invited to something and they know they're going to sit with someone they know, they'll come and try anything. So everybody's seeking to find the answers to happiness. And you see a lot of young people that are not happy. And if you really did step out of your comfort zone and invite a young person to come and sit with you in a church here and let them hear the music and feel a part of that, you would start to see it grow. But really what it is, you have to hold their hand and walk them in here and make them feel comfortable, because they're a lot less social than we were. They get all their contact through the phone, so to have somebody say, I really see that you're hurting and I have this beautiful center, I'd love to bring you with me and maybe I could take you to lunch afterwards, right? So that kind of really taking care of the person, and I think that could be a way to really start bringing some young people in
they
here.
don't know that we exist.
Yeah.
It's really the primary issue. Most young people that come and visit this enjoy it. It's just that they don't know we exist. They assume that this is like the Catholic Church they grew up in and they don't want to be a part of that. But when they do make the journey to come here, they go, oh my goodness, I didn't know this existed. I've heard that probably 6 times in the last 2 years. I had no idea something like this existed.
All right. I think it's
Okay,
good.
next
Did
question.
we cover that enough?
Yeah.
Sandy, did you feel that answered it?
No.
All right, so this says, please name 3 spiritual or religious concepts that all 3 of you agree are core concepts that inform your lives and your ministry. And I think it's pretty straightforward, because we actually have 5. That actually all Unity ministers agree on and inspire them. So these are the 5 basic Unity principles, and we'll go into our individual ones as well. But 1, God is the source and creator of all. There is no other enduring power. God is good and present everywhere. 2, we are spiritual beings created in God's image. The Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good. 3, we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. 4, there is a power in affirmative prayer, which we believe increases our awareness of God. And 5, knowledge of these spiritual principles is not enough. We must live them.
And so I think the living part is probably what they're kind of asking, what our personal practices are. And I think all 3 of ours are very different. That's the one thing when you're on your own spiritual path, you have to find what helps you commune with the divine each day and open up to this greater love. And for me, it's running and dancing, meditating. Every day I exercise first thing in the morning and sit in the quietness of nature, and I love birds. Oh, and I love watching which birds cross my path, and I love looking up what the animal totem is for the day, kind of recognizing that the universe is always divinely directing my life, and so I'm kind of being given a little hint of what's going to come into my office that day, what type of counseling is going to appear, and it always is right, no matter what. I'll have a beaver, swimming in a lake when I never see beavers, and so I'll look up what the beaver is, and it's about busyness and all these things, and I'm like, okay, I better really meditate up today because today's going to be really busy, So I like to just look at the wisdom of the universe and see it, that it's always divinely talking to me, and it's really a lot easier to hear it in the morning when I'm away from my children and my 3 dogs and my husband. So I disappear for an hour and I take care of this before I go back into the world and do this work, this incredible work that we do.
Jack, do you have any sort of spiritual practice you do?
Not yet. But
You'll find one eventually.
I'm thinking about it. Yes, I do advocate for everybody to be involved in daily meditation. The one thing that we need to do is withdraw a little bit from the distractions of the world in order to tune in to that very refined intelligence we sometimes refer to as the still small voice of God. That intelligence is what will lead us and guide us in everything we do in life, and it will play out to bring us great healing, understanding, prosperity, peace of mind, everything you really want in life, if you align yourself with that more refined intelligence that is the image and likeness in you, the living God.
Yeah, we were raised with that concept that we should always have a meditation practice in our life. I have a strict practice I follow every day that is regimented and is always pushing me further and requiring more of my willpower. So often you'll have people say, you need to read this book. And I said, I have volumes of stuff I'm working on. Don't worry about that. That's covered. So yeah, so we've all got our individual things. I think that's one of the great things about Unity is we're putting out a message, but what you take home and you apply is really going to be up to you, specifically what works in your life and what motivates you.
And there's no right or wrong way. That's what's beautiful about this path, is that it's you opening up to this greater energy, and as things work where you start to feel like you're being held and directed and divinely connected, there's no one to tell you that it's right or wrong. We're not here to prove it to anybody else. It's your own sovereign journey with spirits, you discovering more and more that in that awakening, and you come here to get inspired to remember, I got to stay focused, heart connected with this. But then you do what works for you and what brings joy and peace and happiness into your life. And as long as it's healthfully and connecting with that, you know.
Well, it's extremely important today because there's never been a time of more misinformation being shared throughout, you know, the online communities and in the papers and in the news. There is so much, you know, wrong information. And the only way we're going to know what is true and right and good is to be in tune with that divine intelligence which knows the truth. And that's what we're into here in Unity. The Master of Life said the truth will make you free. But in order to apprehend it, one has to take time away from the thinking of the world and tune in and enter into that more expanded space of awareness. And in that, you'll find your true guidance and what you need to do in life.
All right. We got another question. Want to read this one?
As a family-led spiritual center, do you ever have a hard time working together? So if you don't know us, this is Jack Groverlin, Santisha Groverlin, and Shad Groverlin, father, sister, brother. And we have our spouses all working here as well, and our mother. So there's a lot of us. That's what, 6?
No.
It's just easy all the time. Just peaches and ice cream.
You have to recognize that there's 3 strong personalities up here with 3 very clear visions and ministries. And that's not to say that they're the exact same. So we all have a very clear direction we're going in, and we always have to figure out how to make that direction work in the grand scope of what we're doing. That doesn't mean that direction's the same for each of us. You know, we're heading these different directions, we're calling directions. So those directions can bounce off each other, those can intersect or go in opposite directions, and we always have to figure out how to make that work.
And it's an amazing teacher, though, really. I mean, if you want to evolve on a spiritual path, you have to be able to learn how to communicate and with all sorts of people and powerful people. And you have also that like foundation of family where you don't want to upset or disappoint each other, and yet you also know you have to listen to your heart, and you also have to speak up sometimes. You also know you need to know when you need to walk away and you have to go to sleep on it and figure out what spirit really wants. And it's been an incredible demonstration of God working through us, I think, because at first it was really tough. I think for the first 6 months, I cried to sleep every night. I thought, this was the worst decision of my life, for sure. I did. And you know what it was? It was my attachment to the picture of what I thought the church was going to be. You know, I always saw as Jack was going to retire and I was going to take over. That's just how I envisioned it. I'd worked my whole life. And then I realized I wasn't going to be able to do this by myself, and it was time to bring Shad in. And he's great, he's a soft being, but it was so much change. And then he wasn't going anywhere, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's what? Our whole plan just went down the toilet, you know? It was like, I wasn't supposed to say that part, right?
Okay, keep going.
There was, if you have people in 3 different locations and they're coming together, each one has an expectation of what's about to happen. And it took about 6 months for us to realize each one of us was operating based on our expectation of what we thought was going to happen. And it took that time to go, wait, we need to all just clear the slate on what we thought was going to happen and be present with what is happening. So that was a little bit of process and took time.
And then that was a major growing time. I mean, spiritually for me, talk about living in a state of surrender. I think all 3 of us then had to live in a state of surrender and recognizing what are our strengths, you know, and how do we support that. And I think any business that ever has to get down to that point and really see each other and recognize what everybody's strengths are instead of pushing people to be something different than what they actually are. I think that's what we were doing a lot of. And you have to really observe each other. You have to really talk about things. You have to have really hard conversations. And I think we've come out the other side a long time ago. I mean, it's been going pretty smoothly for like 9 months. But that beginning part, I don't know if it was for you. He just kind of hid in his office while we just went at it. And then whenever it got too bad, we'd go to him and he'd counsel us through it. So.
Well, there was this initial idea that we were somehow supposed to merge into one, and then there was going to be one message, one representation, one kind of service, one thing. And it took us a while to say, that's not how this works. There's 3 individuals, there's 3 different expressions, and we need to embrace that and encourage that instead of saying, no, when you do the service, it's too different from this one. You've got to be more like the central service that we're all doing together instead of saying, you know what, do your service how you do your service, however you're called. You do yours how you're called. And that we just got to express how we express, because trying to shoehorn it into one little box is not working.
Because nobody can ever be somebody else, and nobody else can ever be you. You know how people are constantly trying to make you be something that you aren't, and we can't. Our awakening is about owning and knowing thyself and running with that and just flying as giants in life with that. And yet there's this need to try to like compartmentalize something that can't be. So we had to break the ego away, surrender, and then find where the spiritual power was to come through and where it's going to find its voice. And when we finally got there, it was such a relief, such a huge relief for me. I know it was for you and Dad, you know. I mean, it was like we had our life and we had it abundantly, but we had to go into the darkest places, at least I did. I went to a dark place, for sure. There was a hard time. I don't want to ever do it again. I really don't.
Okay, cool.
Glad we made it out the other side to the light.
Did you have any input on that there?
No, basically, our family has always been one that we pursue what we believe, and we, you know, when we have our family reunions and our, you know, we literally have out and out heavy duty debates and things like that. And we come away, but we always come away realizing the other person has his or her point of view and is working on that and will get whatever lessons he or she needs out of life. So while we may become very powerfully, you know, convinced of what we believe in, we allow everyone else to share their own beliefs. We'll defend it and we'll support it.
We'll debate it too,
And
but
debate
in the
it,
end
but-
we'll accept that in each other.
Right.
We find that fun.
Yeah, that's what our family reunions are
Right.
all about, is
We find it
debating
fun.
around the table
Right.
with food. And it is fun.
All
All
right.
right. You can
What
move
else we
on.
got here? When I'm overwhelmed with planet stuff, I like that term, planet stuff, and the daily stresses of life and the world, how can I still participate in the world and keep demonstrating spiritual principles?
And you know, for me, and I was going to actually say a few questions ago, when it comes to my practice, visualization is a huge part of my work. Affirmations and visualizations. Every day I'm working with some sort of an affirmation or visualization. I'm always in the process of manifesting more joy and more happiness, more peace. I have all the outer things that I've ever wanted beyond that, you know. So for me, it's just really having more and more joy, more and more surprise, more and more miracles. And I feel like how to answer this is really always checking in on the vibration of what you're bringing into life. You know, what am I bringing into life? What is the face that my children are seeing when they come out of school? You know, what is it that my husband's seeing when he wakes up? You know, how am I treating, you know, my dogs? The people that show up in the church when I'm really, really busy and I have so much to do and they say, do you have a minute? And I don't have a minute in any way, shape, or form. And yet I have to stop and know that everything is divine that's coming to my life. So it's what are you bringing vibrationally into life? That there's all this overwhelming stuff in the world, but if you want to look upon just the stresses of the world, then you're going to be stressed out and you're adding to that consciousness versus being the light of the world, and that everything that you touch is being actually, it's absorbing that light. It's growing more light. And so I had a little slide that I put up here to kind of give a visual of what could help. This is how your light changes the world. I think it's just a good little picture to think of. You know, we think we're just singular, but we really, really aren't. We are energy first. So what if you're not in a good place to be entering into some situation, then you might not want to go. You know what I mean? Like, I'll talk to people that are stressed out about some big meeting they have to have, or they have a court date, or they have something, and I say, you just have to connect with God and ask God to speak through and get out of your own way. You know, just to let Spirit do it. And you'll find that you'll have no nervousness when you're facing the stresses of life, when you put God first in your life, in every single thing that you do. So there's greater joy, greater happiness, and then that light goes into them, and their light goes into the next. And it's that whole ripple effect. You have no idea what a smile to a perfect stranger can do.
I have an experiment I'm going on right now, and I'm going to invite you to join me in this experiment. I occasionally ride my bike into work from Broomfield, and my goal is to say good morning and smile at every person that's jogging or walking, and Boulder does not say hello or smile to each other. Has anyone else noticed that? As ambassadors, will you say hello and smile to everyone you see on a bike path or a hiking trail or anywhere, and we try to change that culture? It's really weird. You say hello, and they smile, and they look at you just like, what's wrong with you? And then they keep going. And so I figure if I do that enough times, I'm going to hit the same people. Eventually, they're going to get used to that. It'll make that a culture. But when I was thinking about that question, I've noticed this recently in my spiritual practice. I'm trying to get spiritual enough to handle the amount of issues going on in my life. And I realize it's a backwards concept. I need to scale down the issues going on in my life so it's easier to do my spiritual practice. So in relation to that question, I think moderating your contact with the chaos of the world is the first step you need to do. So it's easier for you to show up as an enlightened being in these situations. So we think, how can I pray and meditate enough to handle all this chaos in my life? I still want to watch the depressing news. I still want to go to the horrific movies. I still want to hang out with these horrible people. I just need to pray and meditate enough to be able to handle that. Well, that's the reverse of the way you should go about it. Moderate your contact to the chaos so that you can be less chaotic in your life, and it's easier to do that practice.
I totally agree with that. People say, well, that's like ignorance to avoid all the things that are happening in the world. And we get, you can imagine as ministers, we're getting emails from parishioners. So, we're getting caught up with what's going on. But we don't have the TVs going. We're not listening to radio stations talking about politics. It's like, I hear what God tells me I need to hear, but it will come through usually another person or something. And I think it is why I'm a happy person. I really am a pretty peaceful person, too. Every once in a while, Amazon right now is freaking me out, but I'm calming down. That one's on the heart right at the moment, for sure. Do you have anything to say, sir? You're so quiet today. We usually have to be like, come on, it's our turn.
He just did a whole service. He's wiped out.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. I gave it
All
all.
out of material.
Right, I gave it all. Right. My whole service was about the necessity for us to know where we are paying our attention. In other words, my service is about, we use the term pay attention as though attention is a currency. And it actually is. What are you paying attention to? How much attention are you giving to the different things in your life? Because you have only so much attention to pay. And so the question comes up, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. And what Chad was saying is very true. You have to check in and say to yourself, what am I giving my attention to that really is counterproductive? And what am I giving my attention to that is not really helpful in my own awareness and my experience, my relationships? So you begin to channel your attention toward more truthful, harmonious, spiritual, wonderful, healing experiences. That's the way we become emissaries of light. And I know that a big thing on the table these days is the environment. Are we going to be able to save the planet? Well, the way to save the planet is really that human beings have to become more God-centered so that we're not distracted, and that we're not tossed to and fro by every changing tide of circumstances, that we are in connection with that divine guiding intelligence and love. And that affects the entire collective consciousness. So that's what it's about for me. That's what I'm saying.
What is God and how does God interact with karma?
Too bad we don't have God up here to answer that
I
question.
know it. Well, I
Oh,
had a
wait.
really good conversation with somebody recently that I can share. I'll keep it anonymous, but this person just went, in the last few years, just went through a really, really, really hard divorce from, this person said, a narcissist, which is a word that's used a lot these days, and so I don't know if it really was a diagnosed one of those, but it's been 6 years since that divorce, and this person's life has not gotten any better, even though they've been exited from this marriage for that long. And the question that was being asked of me is, why is this person's life still working so well? And there's like a red carpet for being a narcissist and being such a dark person, and I've done everything right, and my life has done nothing. I've lost my house, I've lost everything, I've lost everything, and this person's so angry, so angry. And I said to this person, it's none of your business what is happening to your ex-husband. But you looking backwards at that person and still playing victim of that circumstance, and I'm not saying that she wasn't hurt massively by this situation, but was so deeply affected that it still has a living life every single day that is pulling the rug out from underneath this feet and wondering, so this person's wondering, where's the karma? Why isn't this person getting karma? And God doesn't work in karma. Karma is a personal, as far as I am concerned, and what Edgar Cayce says, karma is a memory. Our souls have many lifetimes, and sometimes in a lifetime we will have a harder lifetime because of something that we remember we did on some sort of cellular or soul level that you don't have necessarily in your conscious mind, but it's held somewhere in your subconscious mind of something that you could have done to somebody in another lifetime, and then this lifetime you're really getting some catch up to be really honorable, really honest, really, and so you'll see people have really hard lives, you're like, why is this wonderful person just always getting it over and over and over? And this person who's kind of rotten and is lying all the time, the whole world just seems to be unfolded. And don't worry, they'll get theirs, but it's all brought by them, not God. Because that makes God have this judgmental God that judges us and sees things. No, this is a soul journey. We have free will to create. And we also have free will to crucify ourselves as well. And so when we do wrongs, it will probably come back and bite us. But it's because of the fact that at the core of who we are, we have consciousness. And we have a compass that knows what's right and what is wrong. And when we step out of what's right or wrong, it's like when we bite somebody's head off because they frustrated us or something, and at the time we're like, yeah, I was right. And then 3 minutes later, you're like, God, I wish I didn't do that. And it bothers you for days. That's that compass going, you're trying to convince yourself that it's okay to be ugly in this world, but you can't do it because you can't hide from yourself. So as far as I'm concerned, karma is memory. It's like an old tape that's locked somewhere in the soul's journey. When this body leaves, we get the next life, the body leaves, next life, it's still going to find you. If you killed somebody in another lifetime, you're probably going to have some interesting issues this lifetime. That's how I see it.
And I think that's an interesting example, and I don't know this scenario at all, so I have no right to speak to it, but I will anyway. It's, for me, just looking from the outsider's perspective of that particular scenario, it's really almost an instant karma scenario, because one person is judging the other person. This person does not deserve what they're getting. Who's this person to succeed, to have these things? This person's a horrible person. They should be having horrible things happen to their life. Well, what's the outcome of that result is you are now putting yourself in a place of suffering. You have now brought the karma onto yourself. You have created your own bad karma in that instant by trying to judge this other person, as if any of us are allowed to have a position of judging somebody else as whether they deserve to have good things or bad things. Who are we to ever say anyone isn't deserving of good or bad things? We do not have that right. So just by doing that, we put ourselves in a place of suffering. It's instant karma. There was no past life thing that needed to happen there. Right then and there, you were creating a bad karmic experience for yourself.
I love the line in Hamilton where it's like, forgiveness, can you imagine? Forgiveness, can you imagine? I love that line. Can you imagine bringing forgiveness in any area that keeps taking your happiness away? No matter what that person did to you, you are the only one that is hurting because you have not imagined forgiveness in that circumstance.
Okay, we got this question from someone.
Later on, so we don't have it on the thing. So
Yeah.
you're going to read it out loud.
And it was kind of addressed to me. Is God in everything, even in horrific events? I'd definitely say yes, but I'd like to hear a fresh perspective on this. And for example, in the Course in Miracles group that he attends, there is a debate as to whether the opening words of A Course in Miracles could be interpreted to mean this. And the opening words to the Course in Miracles are these: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. I'm not sure that that actually implies what the idea of whether or not God is in horrific events. But I can honestly say that God is not in horrific events ever. The creation by God's will was designed to give that which is created free will. We have free will. God will never violate that. This divine intelligence, which Jesus referred to as our Father, the Father of all, is just like that. Is a divine intelligence so of love and understanding that it allows us to live and learn from living. The problem we human beings have, especially in the Western culture, is we're not awake in living. We do things over and over again without recognizing the outcome of the thoughts and decisions that we have lived by. If we're awake in the process of living and we're taking stock of that, and we're being introspective, like at the end of the day, you look at some argument or some difficulty you ran into, and you recognize you've gone in this direction before. You see, you can make adjustments, and that's what this beautiful thing called free will is all about. This divine intelligence exists like a divine Father. You can go to the Father, you can go to the divine within yourself, and you can ask for guidance and receive it. But that divine intelligence will never come in to force you to do what it wants you to do. That would be the end of the creation the way it exists. It'd be the end of us learning how to become the divine beings which we were born to be. I'll give you one final example. It's getting a little longer. You know, in the Garden of Eden story in the book of Genesis, it talks about Adam and Eve being in the Garden of Eden. Well, that actually in the Hebrew means the Garden of Light, the Garden of Delight. And then they receive the instructions that you may eat of any tree in the garden. And this is speaking to all of us. You can have whatever experiences you want. Just don't get into eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because you have no, you can't do that. If you do that, you're going to cast yourself out of delight, out of happiness. And it's the same thing Jesus said, judge not that you be not judged, for the judgment you're giving is the consciousness you're living in. You're meeting exactly what it is you're judging all the time. So if you were introspective and you were turning within to get guidance from the divine, you'd less and less would be your times when you would be making bad decisions that are creating inharmony and karma. Karma is simply the reaction of conditions, people, and circumstances to your thoughts and actions in relationship to them. So, this question, God is totally benevolent and allows us, just as Adam and Eve were allowed to leave the Garden of Delight. You know why? Because if you were placed in the Garden of Delight where you only could do the will of God, and you go through life in this way, not making the terrible decisions that you sometimes make, because then it would be God's will that you do this. But if you live life and you go through these experiences and you awaken them, it shows you will have to finally choose God. You will not ever be aligned by the force of God. You will become aligned with the divine, the healing, the love, the beauty, the majesty, when you finally say, I need to be in tune with the Father of life every day.
Right.
Skip the last question. All right, we're going to take an offering for Unity now. That's our time.
Oh, but we do want to talk about the fact that now, so when we really got clear about how we were going to do this thing, we did decide that we were going to have our services. So he has a service on Saturdays now at 5. Jack and Norma have a meditation chanting service on Sundays at 9. And this service will be my service every week now too. So not to separate us all out, you guys can go to all of them, but this is what we decided worked best for everybody above.
Yeah. Well, we do have a plethora of ways to give here at Unity of Boulder. And do we have that slide that shows all of our ways? No, maybe not. Okay. Not until the end. All right. Well, then we'll do it then. There we are. So we do have an opportunity to be able to text to give. If you want to text to give, you can do that. We also have an app called Easy Tithe. If you want to download that app, that's actually attached to the text to give platform, so that all your donations will be tracked through that Easy Tithe app, and you can keep track of them. You can sign up for recurring giving there. It's a pretty neat thing. And this is the way to get through the text to give. All right, why don't we gather our donations into our hands, and we're going to bless them with our offering statement, if we can have that up, and you can all say that with me. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, because I give. I believe we have the beautiful choir singing again.
down, and oh, my soul so weary. When troubles come and my heart burden be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulder. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. Raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. Raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. Raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me